Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. Sorry I'm late. Give me 5 seconds. I'm sorry. Crazy start to the stream. Give me just a second. I'm trying to sound not gross drinking this. I apologize. My lifting went way long today. I'm super late. I'm sorry. Okay, let's get rocking. Let's get rolling. I apologize again for that. Sorry. I know I'm late. I'm like 10 minutes late today, so I apologize. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the rough start to the stream. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you are all doing good. We've got some pretty interesting topics that we can talk about today. Two really big ones, but there's some other stuff we can chat about as well. Probably the biggest topic that people are going to be asking about is Microsoft has announced an Xbox Developer Direct. For a long time, people have been wondering, there's been these rumors, is Xbox going to show first-party games, right? We talked about this last week, actually, a bunch, that, you know, there were so many games that are slated to come out in the next 6 months, and Microsoft didn't have a date on any of them. And most of these they haven't even shown since E3. So there was this big wonder, this big question, like, what's going on? Where are the dates? When are these games going to come out? Well, we finally got an update directly from Microsoft themselves. It's called Xbox Developer Direct. And it sounds like this is going to be Microsoft's version of like what a Nintendo Direct is, what a state of play is. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a different spin. It seems Microsoft's strategy with these is going to be having the developers themselves show the games and talk about them, hence the name Developer Direct. And it sounds like that's what it's going to be, right? We have a few studios and a few games that are confirmed to be there. Elder Scrolls Online is going to be there. Redfall is going to be there. Forza Motorsport is going to be there. And Minecraft Legends are all confirmed. Those games are absolutely confirmed to be there. There's also one game that is confirmed to not be there, and that is Starfield. And Microsoft clarified that Starfield is not going to be there because they're going to give it its own presentation later on. So that's like a little bit brief overview about what we can expect. It's going on January 25th. They said there's not going to be a lot of like extra chatter. There's not going to be a lot of fat to this show. It's really going to be focused on showing, you know, these games, giving them dates, of course. I'm sure we're going to get release dates for Redfall, Forza, and Minecraft here. And so Xbox fans have that to look forward to. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about it. What I think about the style, what I think about, you know, Starfield not being there or more. I'll wait to go into all of that for your guys' questions. The other really big topic that I'm sure there's going to probably be some questions about is the current state of Ubisoft and what's going on with Ubisoft. They appear to be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to be honest with you. You guys rarely hear me go like that hardcore and say something like that because I'm not... typically, whenever I talk about things, I don't like to be like super reactive and super like... hot buttony or clickbaity or anything like that. But Ubisoft is legitimately in trouble. So they had a very brutal year last year. They released hardly anything, to be honest with you. And the few games they did release, because a lot of people aren't keeping that in mind, like Ubisoft released almost nothing last year. For a AAA publisher, they had a couple things, right? They had Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. They had Just Dance 2023, but they didn't have these like huge, you know, hitters. Whether you like these games or not, they're usually sales successes that we usually think of from Ubisoft. There was no Assassin's Creed last year. There was no Far Cry last year, you know, et cetera, et cetera. There was no Watch Dogs or anything like that, right? The Divisions. We didn't see any of these big, huge AAA projects out of Ubisoft last year. So A, they didn't even release hardly anything. And then what they did release, they said that it didn't quite meet their expectations. So that's a pretty interesting thing. They delayed Skull and Bones yet again. This game has now been delayed, I believe, 6 separate times. Pretty crazy. And then on top of that, they canceled 3 unannounced games. And that actually brings the unannounced game cancellations up to 7 because they canceled 4 last year. Guys, that's pretty crazy. Like, games get canceled all the time, and a lot of times we don't even know about it, right? It's games that were super in early pre-production. They get killed off, but 7 in essentially less than a year, because they announced that last like July, I think, was when they made the announcement that they canceled 4 last year and then another 3 here at the beginning of the year. You're talking 7 cancellations in essentially less than a year. These are shocking, shocking things. And to prove that this isn't just me being like reactionary or clickbaity, because you guys know I don't want to have that kind of reputation. I don't do that sort of thing. The words come straight from Yves himself, guys. Yves Guillemot himself, the CEO of Ubisoft, sent out an email, and I'm going to read it for you really quick. This was sent to staff. Now, I have a couple thoughts on it, but let me tell you what he said. First of all, to give you some proof that, like, guys, they're in trouble. This is what he says, right? This was a message sent to employees internally via Kotaku. Today, more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success, Ubisoft Yves Guillemot wrote in an email to staff. I am also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we're being as efficient and lean as possible. He went on to talk about how this coming year is incredibly important for Ubisoft's future. He essentially basically put pressure on the staff that they have to get these games out. He said all the pressure's on you. So 2 thoughts on it. First of all, I was on this earnings call whenever they announced all these. I can tell you guys it was maybe the most somber earnings call I've like ever been on in the gaming industry. Like with the big publishers, let's say, with the Activisions, with the EAs, with the Ubisofts, the Microsofts, the Sonys. Guys, I'm on every one of these earnings calls. I listen in on every single one of them, the webcasts, Take-Two, anyone. Every earnings call, I'm on these calls listening. And this one was very somber, both from Yves as well as investors. You could just feel the palpable feeling in the room that they knew things were not going well. Now, does this mean Ubisoft is outright doomed? You know, I'm not going to go as far as to say Ubisoft is doomed. They still own some mega IPs. They have some potentially big hitters coming in Avatar and Star Wars from Ubisoft, massive. Also, Assassin's Creed Mirage has a lot of lapsed Assassin's Creed fans excited. So I'm not going to go as far as to tell you Ubisoft's doomed and the sky is falling. But is it true that Ubisoft is currently not in a great spot? Absolutely. So that's a few of the topics we can talk about today. We can also talk about anything else that you want. The Last of Us series reviews are out, and they are utterly stellar, absolutely incredible. We can talk about that if you guys want, and so much more. If this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be 2 ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type a donation, whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel, and also guarantee that I get to your question. One housekeeping note before I start diving into your guys' questions and comments. There's a good chance there won't be a live chat next week. This breaks my heart. You guys know I love doing the live chats, but my work schedule next week is extremely heavy, and I'm also working pretty much at not normal times to what I normally work. I have a very different work schedule next week, so if I squeeze one in, and this is an if, because guys, there's a real chance we won't be here next week, but if I am here next week, I'm going to warn you, it's going to be a completely different time than it is right now. It'll actually be fairly late in the night in U.S. Time, because I'm in the United States. Like, I wouldn't be getting on here until probably what would be like 9 p.m. Eastern, so pretty late. So odds are there's going to be no live chat next week. I apologize about that, but there will be one the week after, of course. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling. We got no super chats yet, so we can dive straight into your guys' free questions. Let's get going, and thanks for showing up today, guys. Michael Yu, hey Benji, do you think we'll see any third-party Game Pass games at Developer Direct? They do mention Game Pass in their Developer Direct announcement, but it's unclear if that includes third-party. I would expect that you're going to get a little bit here more than what is the 4 games that they announced. They did not say that those are the only 4 games. It's just those are the 4 games that they were confirming. However, I also would not expect this to be like a crazy like reveal fest, Michael Yu. I would not go into this thinking I'm going to get 5 games announced that I didn't even know about, and, we're going to see all this crazy new first-party things. Not at all. There might be a little bit. Don't be shocked if you see like 1 or 2 or 3 even maybe, things that weren't announced beforehand. I don't mean brand new games, but games that weren't part of the 4 games they confirmed. I wouldn't be shocked if you see a few games there that aren't, but don't expect anything super crazy, right? Maybe some brief trailers. Maybe they'll do another Atomic Heart trailer or something like that, since that's next month. There are rumors that Tango is going to announce a new game here. The first-party studio, a smaller project, not like a next huge AAA game, but more of a smaller project, kind of like how Pentiment was for Obsidian. There are some rumors about that. I can't confirm that. I don't know, but those are the rumblings that are out there. So you might get some stuff here, but don't expect this to be like an E3 show. My comments on this ended up being spot on last week. Last week, I was asked about, like, before we knew what this was, I was asked, is Microsoft really going to do a show, and can we rule out one in January? And I said, no, we can't rule one out in January, which ended up being correct. And I said the reason we can't rule it out is because I never expected this to be a major showcase. And that's exactly what we ended up getting, right? Consider this like exactly what I talked about. It's about showing you and dating for you the games that are supposed to be coming out in the next 6 months. Minus Starfield, because Starfield's going to get its own showing. And that's exactly what it ended up being. Now, I thought Starfield was going to be here, to be clear. But outside of Starfield, this ended up being exactly what I thought it was going to be. So, like I said, maybe you're going to get some third party, but don't expect craziness. Just maybe a little bit. All right, I think we did have a couple super chats drop, so let me hit those. We did. We have 2 super chats. First of 5 from Benji. Thank you so much, Benji. It's so great to see you. Thank you for always being so supportive. Hi, Benji. Do Arcane have issues marketing their games? They say Redfall is not a Left 4 Dead, but more a Far Cry. I can't see any Far Cry vibes so far. Well, it just depends. I actually kind of have gotten that vibe in most of their trailers. I don't know if you guys watched the more deep dive where they talked about the game. It came out sometime last year. This was far after E3. And it became pretty clear with that. Microsoft didn't market it well, I'm going to be honest with you, that they were doing that, like that little presentation on Redfall. But they made it pretty clear in that whenever they were discussing that this is not a Left 4 Dead style game. It's a game that has co-op, but there's tons of games that have co-op that play nothing like Left 4 Dead. I actually think this is a great thing, by the way. Some people don't like Far Cry, whatever. Far Cry is a gigantic seller, and I think this has potential to be far more successful being a Far Cry style game than it ever would have being a Left 4 Dead clone. So I think this is actually very, very good news for Arcane. And no, I'm not surprised by this, and I thought they made that actually fairly clear, Benji, the last time they talked about it. They were talking about how this is the biggest map by far Arcane's ever done. You wouldn't really have that in a Left 4 Dead clone, right? Left 4 Dead clones aren't in ginormous open worlds. If you look at Left 4 Dead itself, if you look at Back 4 Blood, that's just not how those games play. And they talked about how this is so much bigger than Prey ever was, than Dishonored ever was. They were talking about the leveling systems and things like that. But I know a lot of people did not see that. I know a lot of people did not see that deep dive. So you might have missed it yourself, because like I said, Benji, they did not market this thing well in Microsoft's hand. So I do think a lot of people, just because of what they showed at E3, are probably thinking this is a Left 4 Dead style. But yeah, no, it's very much not, and this to me is good news. I love Left 4 Dead. I actually had a lot of fun with Back 4 Blood as well, but I think you have a lot more potential to be successful with something more like Far Cry than that. And keep in mind, whenever they say like Far Cry, it doesn't mean it's like a Far Cry clone. It just means that they have this big, giant, open world style shooter, and they've talked about how it's still going to have a lot of narrative elements, a lot of the things that you still like from typical Arcane games, where there's a lot of world building and notes you can find and all this sort of stuff. So to me, this is nothing but good news, to be honest. However, is it true that Arcane has issues marketing their games? They definitely have issues hitting mainstream success. That's just the reality. The only really highly successful Arcane game in the last, 10 years is essentially the first Dishonored. and that might even be more than 10 years old now. I can't even remember. But Dishonored was a pretty big hit for them. But if you look at Dishonored 2 sales, if you look at Prey sales, if you look at the Dishonored 2 expansion they did, none of these games sold a ton. If you look at Deathloop, didn't sell a ton. Unfortunate, because Arkane's a very talented developer, but I think a lot of their games, even as beloved as they are in the hardcore community, right? You look at Deathloop. Deathloop reviewed incredibly high. It was nominated for Game of the Year. If you look at Prey and Dishonored 2, these games are so open in many ways in terms of how you tackle and handle them, and so non-linear in a lot of ways, that I think that somewhat impacts how it can be engaged with audiences. The reality is a lot of casual gamers, don't get me wrong, look at Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild. Those are games that are completely open with like hardly any hand holding. I'm not telling you that those kind of games can't be successful. I'm just saying that also a lot of the biggest successes are these like more linear style games. So, you know, we'll have to see. But I think this is going to do well for them. Apologize for the dog. It's like literally every chat now. Just every single chat. He's going to go for probably the next 5 minutes. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. Benji, how are you doing? With Ubisoft unable to sell themselves because they sold 14% of Control to Tencent, does this mean no one can get them? No, they can be sold, but I believe that the way the contract worked with Tencent is they can't be bought by Tencent for a certain amount of time. I would have to read that report again, but I believe, Highlander, what it was that Tencent was allowed to invest more in them, but Tencent is not able to fully buy Ubisoft for, I think it was 2 years, but I could be completely wrong here, Highlander. And I apologize if I'm telling you wrong info. I never want to do that, but this is off the top of my head. I believe that's the way it was worded, that it was a deal with Tencent themselves. Yes, you can invest more into us, but you can't outright control buy us for X amount of years. I don't think that said anything about other parties. I think it was just specifically a contract with Tencent themselves, and it didn't say that Tencent can't permanently buy Ubisoft. It was for a set amount of time. I want to say 2 years. So we'll have to see how that goes. Jeff Grubb reported that Ubisoft has been trying to do mergers. They've been trying to be maybe acquired by people, but most people are laughing them out of the room. And to be honest, I'm not super surprised by that, because the main issue for Ubisoft is how utterly ginormous they are. Ubisoft has a lot of great IPs. I think a lot of people would love to own Far Cry. I think a lot of people would love to own Assassin's Creed. I think a lot of people would love to have those Tom Clancy contracts. However, Ubisoft has a ridiculously enormous workforce. And whenever you're acquiring someone, you're taking on all of that headcount, right? If you're going to buy Ubisoft, now you have to pay thousands, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of devs and studios all around the world every year, right? For years, you got to pay all these people. That's a huge ask for a lot of companies. So I'm not going to say that Ubisoft potentially can't be bought. In fact, I've said for a while, I think that they are a potential acquisition target for a lot of people. But that is an issue for them. An issue for them is how many employees they have. They're huge. They're huge. Last I checked, unless things have changed, they have the highest headcount of any publisher in the industry. That's right. Even if they're not number one in revenue, not even close to be honest, there's more people at Ubisoft. Last I checked, this might have changed, but there's more people at Ubisoft than there's at EA. There's more people at Ubisoft than there's at Take-Two. There's more people at Ubisoft than there's at Activision. That's a lot of freaking people you got to pay. So that's a big issue for them. Reverse World with the 2 super chat. Of the big 3, which has your favorite set of IPs? Well, thank you for the super chat, Reverse World. You know, it's hard to say because this changes a lot. I'm not one of those people that's tied to a specific platform. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that. That people that are super big fans of, like, you know, a Nintendo console. You know, they're just hardcore into Nintendo or hardcore into PlayStation or hardcore into Xbox. I've never really been that way. I've never really had an allegiance, if you will. Like growing up, I could always get one console per gen. That was the way it worked out for me. You know, my parents didn't have a ton of money, but they had enough to try and get me a console each gen. And that changed, right? I had a Super Nintendo when I was a little kid. Then I went to a PlayStation 1. Then I went to a PS2. Then I went to an Xbox 360. Then I went to, once I could start buying my own consoles, where I started buying all of them. So you can see I went from Nintendo consoles to PlayStation consoles to Xbox consoles. To me, it really varies depending on what's coming out. Like I would say during the 360 and PlayStation 3 generation, as much as I loved Uncharted and as much as I loved The Last of Us, the first one, I think I was during the 360 generation a lot more into Xbox's first party because I loved Halo. And I loved Gears of War at the time, right? Halo 3, Halo Reach, Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. Like, I was super into Gears and Halo at the time. And I loved Forza. So during that gen, I leaned, I would say, more Xbox. But then last gen, I would say I was much more towards PlayStation. I thought PlayStation 4 had a much stronger first-party lineup than Xbox. I'll be honest, I've always said Nintendo is my least favorite platform. Still like Nintendo. I still play a ton of Nintendo exclusives, but I would say the one that I am like usually the least interested in of the three, it's Nintendo, but that's going to change a lot depending on person. There's some years where that's not true. Like obviously last year, I think Nintendo had a way better output than Xbox. I would have put Xbox dead last. Last year they released hardly anything, but that it really varies for me. But that's kind of how I would shake it out. Like if you're asking my personal opinion, 360 and PS3 gen, I liked the 360 games more. Last gen, I liked the PlayStation 4 games more than the Xbox One games. And this gen, I don't know. It's way too early to say. I would right now, of course, lean more towards PlayStation. Ragnarok I loved. Horizon Forbidden West I loved. But Xbox has some big stuff coming with Starfield, Redfall, etc. So this could change. We'll have to see how this gen shakes out. And like I said, usually most of the time Nintendo will be the one I'm the least interested in, but I still like a lot of Nintendo games. Last year, usually most years I have at least one Nintendo exclusive in my top 10 games of the year. Last year I had Kirby and the Forgotten Land in my top 10. I loved that game. It was the first Kirby game I've ever beaten, and I loved it. So it varies. For me, it just really varies depending on like who's releasing what. All right, super chats are cleared. Thank you so much, guys, for those super chats. Biglow25, Benji-Sales, are you excited and glad about Xbox doing this format? And if it does well, I hope we see more later to supplement E3 instead of the once-a-year showcase. Absolutely. I'm very, very excited and very, very happy about this. I've talked about this a lot, that the one big showcase per year just doesn't cut it nowadays. And I even made a tweet about this. It doesn't cut it nowadays, and it especially does not cut it whenever you're like Microsoft trying to run a subscription platform. You can't really just come out once every 12 months and try and hype everyone up and then try and ride that hype when you have a subscription, for another 12 months. Like, we'll be back in a year from now to hype you again. That just doesn't work. Doesn't work, especially with the Game Pass model where some people are subbing per month. I know a lot of us stack months. A lot of us will be like, oh, I'm going to buy, 3 years and stack it whenever I can get a deal. But as someone that works retail, I can tell you guys it's not the case of everyone. All the time I have people come in and they're buying 1 month Game Pass cards. They're buying 3 month Game Pass cards. A lot of people are just subbing here and there. If a big exclusive comes out, they'll sub for a month or two. Or if a certain month looks really good on Game Pass to them, they'll sub. If there's 2 or 3 games they see coming this month to Game Pass, they'll sub for a month because it might be cheaper than buying those games. So not everyone's like us hardcores where they just stack tons of Game Pass time. And whenever your goal is to keep people engaged and keep people subscribing and don't lapse, stay subscribed, hit that every single month, or hit that 3-month card every single 3 months, you need to be telling people about the games. You can't just come out in Game Pass or at E3 and be like, here's the next 12 months of Game Pass, and now we're not going to market it. Like every once in a while we'll throw a trailer up on our YouTube. That's not going to cut it. You need to be coming out and previewing what's going to come to Game Pass. I would say once per quarter would be amazing. Ideally, I think the best marketing strategy for Microsoft would be every quarter, kicking the quarter off like they are here in January. Now, I don't think you're going to get that right off the bat, right? But I think once per quarter, you come out and you go, hey, we're going to do this developer direct, and we're going to show you the next 3 months or the next 4 months of Game Pass. Maybe you do that 3 times a year, right? 4, 8, 12. You do 3 of them per year. Absolutely. And these don't need to be giant showcases. As long as you have the expectations set, this is what I tweeted about, you still have your one big show that's going to preview the next 12 months. And I had Klobrel, or I don't even know how you pronounce his name, Klob or whatever. I'm a fan of his, so whenever I say that, I'm not trying to be rude. But he was getting in there, and we were debating a bit, and he was talking about how you had to shorten down E3 if you were going to do these supplemental things. And kind of, but my tweet never said, for example, you keep it the exact same it is. Okay, it's right now like 2 hours? If you really shorten that 30 minutes, is that big of a deal? I don't think so. What I meant was you still have the one bigger show, right? However long that ends up being. You do one bigger show a year to give you an overview of the next 12 months. Like, here's the super stuff you can get hyped about over the next year. And then once per quarter, or maybe once every 4 months, you do one of these developer directs and you dive into here's what you're going to get. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, this is why you stay subscribed. That's exactly how you do it. That's exactly how you run it. You can do it fairly cheap, to be honest. Now, if you're trying to make this thing a big, huge, crazy showcase, that ain't going to work. But if you're doing a quick 30-minute, 45-minute little mini all-digital show, you can produce that for fairly cheap, especially if you're having no host and stuff like they're doing, where it's the devs themselves presenting it. And you don't have to make it just about first party, right? You do one of these and you have the first party games that are going to come in that quarter or the next 4 months. And you also have games the size of Atomic Heart or games the size of Monster Hunter Rise or whatever. And you have those devs present that and be like, you're going to get this. If you're subscribed, you're going to get this. If you're subscribed, you're going to get this, and that's how you do it. I'm very confident in that. I'm very confident that would be the best way to market Xbox and Game Pass moving forward. Very confident. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that keeps going. But here's what I'll say. I think you're definitely going to get more than one of these per year because I don't think they would have gone all out and given this a brand new name and everything like that. The fact that they're calling this Xbox Developer Direct, it says to me this will be a reoccurring thing. Now, how often they do it, who knows? But we'll have to see. But yes, it's a good move. It's a step in the right direction. All right, I think we just had a 5 super chat. We did. Highlander with your second super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. My daughter loves her Pac-Man 1-Up arcade. My wife hates the fighting between us over a high score for Galaga. My wife says I need to get my own, LOL. Well, that's fun. A little fun competition. I'm glad that she loves it. That's awesome. You told us that you got her that for Christmas. Very, very cool, Highlander. And yeah, I haven't gotten into that competition mode with my daughter yet because she's still a little too little to get super into games that aren't like super casual touchscreen games, but I'm pretty excited when I can play more games with her. The most advanced thing for my daughter right now, like I said a few chats ago, is Peppa Pig. That was the first game that she played with controller, and she did well, so I was happy for that. But that's awesome. Great to see that, Highlander. Thanks for the super chat, man. I really appreciate that. Back to your free questions. Logan Hardy. Benji, your thoughts on how well or not Forbidden West sold based on these charts? For me, it sold well, but still underperformed in my opinion. Logan Hardy, it's impossible for me to say because we've never gotten a single number out of Sony. So I would say definitely sold well. I think the idea that Horizon Forbidden West didn't sell well is should really be over. It did sell well. Now, the question of if it met like the expectations that maybe me or you, Logan, or maybe even Sony had on the game, that's hard to say because they've never given a number. We can look at charts all we want, but they're all still very incomplete. Like if you see Horizon Forbidden West on a US NPD chart and you see it's like, whenever I say you, this is the proverbial you. It's applying to myself as well. Whenever I see a chart and it's just like, hey, Horizon is this random number, I got no idea what the units are there. You know what I mean? Like whenever it's on the year-to-date chart, because NPD has become so secretive now, I can tell you, even among the leaks community, it used to be that like, I'll be honest, I always pretty much knew the NPD numbers because they'd be leaked to me. Even that is pretty much dried up. Even the NPD leaks are mostly over. I'm not going to tell you there's no people out there that are still getting the NPD unit leaks, but they're like very low now. It might be just a select few people in private, but I don't even get NPD leaked data anymore. So I have no idea. I have no idea besides placement rankings what that number is. I haven't been told by anyone at Guerrilla. I'll be honest, a lot of times devs tell me how their games are doing. I'm lucky in that regard that I have enough connections that a lot of times the dev, if they're excited how their game's performing, they DM me. They say, hey, my game's doing really, really good. I've not had anyone from Guerrilla DM me how Horizon Forbidden West did or from Sony. But from what I can see, Logan, definitely sold well. However, if it met the sort of numbers that we would expect or if Sony expected, it's hard for me to say because Sony's never given a public number. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say, Logan, but it did sell well. Like you said, because you even said it sold well, but it underperformed to what you expected. Yeah, sold good, but it's hard to say the number. I haven't heard anything from Gorilla or Sony on it. Hammersley Ford. Hello, Benji. I was worried that Xbox would not confirm a separate Starfield show was in the works, so I felt very good when they did. I am expecting your classic Todd deep dive with a release date. Yeah, I had a bunch of people tag me whenever Microsoft made that announcement because I had written a tweet beforehand whenever the rumors first came out. And I wrote a tweet that, got quite a bit of attention. It wasn't like super viral or anything, but it ended up with over 2,000 likes. And I had said just a small piece of advice to Microsoft if the rumor was true, which did end up being true. Guys, we need to give Jez some credit here. He was 1,000% accurate on his report about this. He got the name right, he got the date right, and he got what was going to be there right. Like, shout out to Jez and Windows Central. They completely nailed this, literally in every single way. But whenever that report was out there before it was confirmed, I wrote this tweet and I was like, guys, if it's true that you're not going to show Starfield, you absolutely need to announce that first or at the show, right? Either way, either you needed to get out ahead of it first or during the showcase, they needed to say, hey, Starfield's not here, but don't worry, we are showing it separately later. And there's one really important reason why you need to do that, and it's to set expectations. I'm not one of these people that's super selfish like Microsoft. I'm so angry at you that Starfield's not going to be here. Now that I know it's not, dude, it's all good. If you're going to show this later at its own thing, you want to do a big deep dive, that is completely fine. However, if a bunch of people, because we all know this would have happened, if they don't say anything about it first, everyone's going into this thing expecting Starfield. Like everyone. If you're tuning in, you're thinking Starfield is here. And if you went through the whole thing and nothing was said about Starfield, there was no announcement beforehand, that blowback online would have been brutal. Even from the Xbox fans. I'm not just saying like PlayStation fanboys or anything like that. Even the Xbox fans would have been rioting. They would have been like, I tuned into this thing. Where the freaking heck is Starfield? Because that's the game, let's be honest, that the Xbox community is the most excited for out of the first-party games coming up soon. For the most part. There might be some people more excited for Forza, but most of the Xbox audience is most hyped for Starfield. And I had a bunch of people, luckily Microsoft announced this beforehand. Great move. They absolutely had to do that. Now expectations are set. I think people are going to go into this and probably be happy with what they show because they know don't expect Starfield here. And I had a bunch of people tagging me like, Benji, it was because of your tweet. I'll be honest, guys. I don't think it was because of my tweet. What I can tell you is that Phil Spencer and Aaron Greenberg absolutely saw it because both of them follow me on Twitter and they were both also being tagged nonstop in the tweet. A ton of the replies were tagging Phil and Aaron, and plus they both follow me on Twitter, so there's no doubt they did not see it. So again, guys, I don't think it was because of me. I think Microsoft was probably going to announce this beforehand either way. But I can tell you they at least were very well aware, you guys made them aware afterwards, whether this was planned already, that they did make the right move announcing this, because I had a ton of people tagging them in the comments on my tweet being like, Phil, Aaron, read this. This is correct. You need to tell us beforehand. So, yeah, it's a good move by them. Good move. So now that we all know, not a big deal. They say another standalone one's coming soon. It's probably going to be just like you said, a deep dive like they did for Fallout. If you guys remember before Fallout 4 came out, Todd Howard did this big, huge deep dive on what Fallout 4 was. They'll probably do the exact same thing. And yeah, they'll announce a release date there whenever they do that. Split End 89, what's up, Split End? Good friend of mine, awesome dude, and always helping mod the channel, saying, Benji, the only one with legs better than avatars. I don't know about that. I have been working out a lot. The legs are probably a lot better than they were, but better than avatars. I don't know about that, guys. Avatar's legs have been spectacular. The Way of Water. It's going to be a $2 billion film, guys. Crazy. A lot of people doubted, myself included. If you guys go back, I think I was asked about Benji. Benji asked me, this was quite a while ago, before the movie ever came out, like 3 months ago or whatever. And I said what I expected was it was definitely going to do over $1 billion. You had some people being like, It's going to gigaflop. No one cares about Avatar. I was like, no way. This is the sequel to the biggest movie of all time in terms of revenue. Like, it's going to make $1 billion. Like, but I said, I don't think it'll make $2 billion. And I was wrong, guys. It's going to make $2 billion. It's incredible. Dark Detective saying, hey, Benji. What's up, Dark Detective? Another great friend of mine. Great to see you here, Dark. I think there might have been a super chat. Let me see. There was. Highlander with another one. Holy cow, Highlander. That's your third of the chat, man. You don't got to be that generous, but thank you so much. Highlander with a 5. I know Microsoft said a few years ago that Microsoft wanted at least one AAA game a quarter. Exactly. Yes. And I've heard that behind the scenes as well. Not only in public, but I've also heard it through the grapevine. At least one per quarter. Do you see Microsoft able to do that not just this year, but next year as well? This year looks very likely that you're finally going to get that happening because well, it depends on Forza. It depends on Forza. So, because right now my belief is that Q2 has both Redfall and Starfield because the reported release date, which seems to have been verified now by several people, is that Redfall is going to be in May. And I believe Starfield is going to be in June. I think it's going to be the very end of June. Now, if Forza releases, let's say in March, we don't know, or Minecraft Legends, I assume one of those games is going to be in February or March because they have to, considering they have also Redfall and also Starfield right after that. They have 4 games that got to squeeze in. Actually, plus we already know they're going to because of Age of Empires is Q1. I forgot. That's going to be the end of this month. So there's a very good chance, Highlander, that 2023, right now, this year, is the first year that you see that. 1 game per quarter. It's very likely because there's also rumblings that Hellblade 2 is the end of this year. I think the rumblings I've heard is September, but don't quote me on that. We'll have to see what happens. I'm not confident in that at all, guys. That's just one thing I heard thrown out there. But so if they squeeze one more in, let's just say that my thoughts are right on the roadmap. Let's say that Redfall and Starfield are May and June. Let's say Minecraft and Forza are somewhere in that first quarter. Let's say theoretically that Hellblade 2 is a September release or even later. Let's say it's like a November or December release. They only need one other game to be in that, to have a game every quarter starting this year. So I think they can get there, but they got to clean up their development, right? A lot of their games are taking way too long. That's just the reality. And part of it can be blamed on the pandemic, but you can't blame everything on the pandemic. The reality is that Sony and Nintendo are both still releasing a lot of games. That's just the truth, guys. Really like Xbox first party, but if you look at last year, Xbox essentially released like nothing but Pentiment. And, you know, whether you like these games or not, Sony's released God of War Ragnarok, they released Horizon Forbidden West, they released Gran Turismo 7, and they released Last of Us Part 1. They had 4 games last year, first party, and that's not even counting MLB The Show. You look at Nintendo, they had, you know, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. They had Xenoblade 3. They had Bayonetta 3. They had Fire Emblem, you know, 3 Hopes, which I know was, you know, developed by a third party, but it was, it's still a first party game, right? It's their IP. So regardless, Microsoft can't only lean on, hey, you know, it's the pandemic, because the pandemic does suck and it has absolutely impacted things. I'm not just brushing off the pandemic impact, but Sony and Nintendo are still getting games out. So they have to clean up how their games are getting developed. A lot of these games are taking an extremely long time. Look at how long Fable's taken. Look at how long Everwild's taken. Look at how long Starfield's taking. A lot of their games are taking incredibly long dev cycles, which isn't uncommon. But if they're really going to try and hit every quarter, like they're saying, they got to get some of these games, you know, developed a little faster. So we'll have to see. But this year, it looks like they're probably going to do it, and I think they can some most years moving forward too. Probably. And then Highlander says, Xbox should hire you to do PR for them. You know, funny thing, I don't really talk about this much, but Xbox did reach out to me to potentially hire me one time. I'm not going to go more into it than that, but yeah, it's happened. So pretty interesting. I don't know if I should tell you guys that. Oops. But they've actually, Xbox has already reached out to hire me before. And I messed that up. I've told you guys that I've had companies reach out to me about hiring me. Xbox was one of them. You know, it wasn't like Xbox reached out and they're like, Benji, we're going to hire you. But they reached out and they're like, apply. We want you to apply to work at Xbox. And I've given you guys this advice before. Don't undervalue yourself, don't undersell yourself, and don't shoot yourself short, because I do that a lot in life. The opportunity that they reached out to me about, I'm not going to go super into detail here because it's not like I'm under NDA or anything, but I don't want to air out a ton of information about it. But the job that Xbox wanted to hire me for, I personally felt I wasn't quite qualified for. It was a pretty important job, if I'm going to be honest with you, and I was pretty intimidated by it, and I kind of messed that opportunity up. Don't sell your guys short. I should have shot my shot. You know what I mean? I should have just went for it, because, hey, what a crazy opportunity, right? To work for Xbox, that would have been nuts. So that's one thing you guys can learn from me. If you ever get a pretty amazing opportunity and you know, maybe in my head at the time, I felt like I was doing the right thing, because I was like, what if I accept this job? You know, if it worked out. I'm not telling you guys I was guaranteed, but let's say I interviewed for this position and everything and I got it. My worry was like, what if I completely royally screw this up? And then, like, you know, I burned a bridge with Microsoft, and now I have a bad reputation potentially with other people, because they're like, well, we hired him because we thought he'd be better at doing this than he actually ended up being. I should have been more confident in myself, and I didn't end up taking the potential opportunity to get this job with Xbox. So, but Highlander, I can tell you, they have thought of me before. So they have thought of me before. It wasn't a PR job, actually. If it was PR, I probably actually would have accepted it. I think I could probably do PR stuff for them. Like in terms of, like, you know, if you see like on the Xbox Wire and stuff, like whenever they like announce reports like what happened with High on Life and things like that, stuff around stats and things like that, I think I could absolutely do pretty well for Xbox. But again, I'm not going to go into detail about what this position was, but it was a lot more hardcore than that. It was a very important thing. And I was a little intimidated by it, if I'm going to be honest with you. Split End 89. It was more on the business side. Split End 89 with the 2 super chat. What's Ubi's path? And thank you so much, Split End, dude. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much, man. What's Ubi's path to improve beyond cutting things? Well, one thing is they are going to cut a ton. You know, we've already gotten that clearly example to us. They canceled 7 games. And, you know, Eve's internal message to employees, he outright was like, we got to, like, penny pinch, essentially. Like that was his wording, not mine. He didn't use that word. He didn't say penny pinch, but he essentially said, we got to run lean. We got to run super lean. So what can they do besides cutting things, right? Because that's your question. It's a great one, Split End. It's a great question. Here's what Ubisoft really needs to do. They need to focus. Ubisoft's got to focus, man. And I sent out a tweet about this, and it was about like their free-to-play stuff. And whenever I sent this tweet, I didn't want to insult anyone that's working on these free-to-play games for Ubisoft. I wasn't trying to say that maybe none of these will be successful. I have some Ubisoft employees that follow me, so I feel bad if you know, let's say one of them's working on The Division Heartland and they saw my tweet, and they might have taken it me being like, you know, don't do free-to-play games, which is why I had a follow-up tweet underneath it. And, you know, it was never meant to be any sort of insult towards Ubisoft, but they have no focus. They have no focus as a publisher. Whether you like Activision or not, I think one mistake about Activision is how reliant they are on Call of Duty, but you at least see their strategy. Like Activision, it's very obvious. We make Call of Duty. We want Call of Duty to be as big as it possibly can be. And we have Blizzard making like World of Warcraft and like Overwatch and stuff. Like they have a set. You kind of know what Activision's doing. EA, very similar. You know they're making those sports games. You know they're making Battlefield. You know that they're going to like now do some single-player stuff, which is refreshing to see between Star Wars and Dead Space. Ubisoft's a company that feels like they're just throwing darts at the wall. They don't feel focused at all. And what my free-to-play tweet mentioned was how, and I called this, dude. I was on the earnings call when Eves announced this, and I even sent out a tweet from all the way back then, and I said, some of these investors on this call sound nervous, because they did. This was the call where Eve said, we're now all in on premium free-to-play. He wasn't saying we're going to experiment. He was like, moving forward, we are all in on premium free-to-play. And when I heard this, I'm like, what? Like, you should experiment with free-to-play, absolutely. But what do you mean you're all in? And, dude, Eves was getting questions about that from investors. They were like, so what's going to happen with, like, AAA output? Like, what's going to happen with these Far Cry's and Assassin's Creeds that we've come to expect that made us successful? And they were just like, it's premium free-to-play. He didn't say there's going to be none of these games. He said it's premium free-to-play. And you can tell that was the internal strategy because my tweet mentioned how they went from 0 free-to-play games. Ubisoft had, like, no free-to-play games in development. To, at the same time, guys, having Hyperscape, The Division Heartland, Ghost Recon Frontland, X-Defiant, Roller Champions, and I'm aware of 3 more unannounced free-to-play games that were in development. And there could have even been more than I was aware of. So we're talking they had 8 free-to-play games in development at the same time, and you haven't even had a success with one yet? What are you doing? How many resources and how much time are you burning just throwing darts at the wall, man? Like, that was so obvious. I don't claim to be like the best sales guy, the best business guy, anything like that. But guys, that was so obvious to me back then, and you are seeing it play out now. When you have 8 minimum, keep in mind could be more, free-to-play games in development simultaneously, that's all resources that aren't going to your established franchises that you could be putting releases out for. That's all a whole new venture for you. So it's not like developing another Assassin's Creed regular game where you know what you're developing. You've developed these games. Your teams have experience in this. When you're just shifting completely to free-to-play, you have to completely relearn and retrain these teams. And how are we going to tackle the monetization? And how are we going to... It's like crazy. It was absolutely nuts what they did. And I think you're really seeing it bite them in the butt now. Now, again, I think you should experiment with free-to-play because there's potential to have huge money there. Look at Fortnite, guys. Look at Destiny, which has made a ton of money going to free-to-play. Look at Apex Legends. And that's why I had this follow-up tweet. I was like, experimenting in free-to-play totally makes sense. But Ubisoft maybe have like 2 of these in development. And if one of those is a hit, okay, now we try another one. Okay, one of them failed. One of them was a hit for us. Now let's try our hand at another one. We've got this one that's being successful. We'll keep doing good on that. Now we'll try, and you slowly build that up. Ubisoft went from, we don't have free-to-play games. Now we're going to put literally half of our teams at least just making free-to-play stuff. That was never going to work. At no point in time was that going to ever work out for a company. And it was a crazy decision. I'm usually not super, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not usually super critical of CEOs or anything like that, or of leadership, because these people are making way more money than I am. Their response to me would be, Benji, you're a low-level retail employee. What the heck are you talking about? I'm running a freaking billion-dollar company and you're a random dude barely surviving. And I'd be like, you're right. You're right. But in this specific thing, I'm not telling you I can run a company like Eves can, but in this specific decision, it was very obvious. It was crazy. And Ubisoft has got to focus. They have got to focus. They can't just be chasing trends, and they can't be throwing darts at boards. They need to focus on making Assassin's Creed incredibly high quality. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the most profitable Assassin's Creed game ever. They need to focus. Keep Assassin's Creed super high quality. Keep it engaging. Keep it fresh. Focus on Far Cry. Make Far Cry super engaging. Make it super good. Focus on Avatar. Focus on Star Wars. Make these games the best possible games that you absolutely can, and still experiment, but don't just flip your company on its head and just hope it works out, bro. You want to talk about gambling? That's gambling. And a lot of times when you gamble, the house wins and you lose. And that was crazy. Now, again, I'm not telling you Ubisoft's doomed. I think they can absolutely turn things around. Assassin's Creed Mirage might be a hit. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora could be a hit. Ubisoft massive Star Wars game could be a hit, right? I'm not dancing on Ubisoft's grave, but they got to focus. So the answer to your question, what they can do beyond cutting things, focus your business. Get your ducks in order and get super good at developing what you got all of your money from and experiment outside of that. So that would be my advice. But thank you so much, Split End. I really appreciate that. And I'm sorry for the rant, but I feel pretty strongly about this. I feel pretty strongly about it. Chris with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Chris. Greetings from Brazil. Keep the great work. Greetings to you in Brazil. I love seeing people from all over the world in the chat. It makes me genuinely so happy. Do you think this is the year that will finally pay off the years of investment from Xbox? Yes, to a degree. Yeah, I think this is going to be the year where you really start to see it pay off. I don't know if it's going to be... It depends on if Hellblade 2 is this year. So if Hellblade 2 is really this year, which again, I don't have this confirmed, but there are definitely rumblings out there that it is, you would have, Redfall hitting, which is from a studio they acquired. You would have Starfield hitting, which is from a studio they acquired. You'd have Hellblade, which is from a studio. You know what I mean? You'd have like 3 really big games. I know Minecraft Legends is from one they acquired too, but Mojang was so long ago now. It's like they just are first party. Like these would be like new games from studios that were recently acquired, right? You'd be getting an Arcane game and a Bethesda Game Studios game and a Ninja Theory game. So Chris, it absolutely could be as long as these games are good. If these games are good, if Starfield nails it, people really like it. If Redfall's good, people really like it. If Hellblade's really this year and people really like it, yes, this absolutely, Chris, could be the year where you're like, because 2022 definitely wasn't. I loved Pentiment, but it was a small game, and you didn't get like a lot of that that AAA output from these studio acquisitions. This is potentially the year where you really start to see that come through. You know what I mean? If you have 3 big AAA games coming, and let's say they're all good quality, it doesn't mean they all have to be like the best game you've ever played, but as long as all 3 are solid, good games, yeah, Chris, this could be the year. Yeah, it very well could be the year, but they have to deliver the quality. Vision49 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Vision. Very kind of you. Do you think the subscription model changes Microsoft's calculus on releasing big games next to each other, where Sony needs to space games out? Dude, so much. Vision, it's a great observation. Xbox can afford to release games closer together than Sony can. Absolutely. And the reason is because Microsoft's not that worried about sales cannibalization. I've been told this off the record directly from Microsoft and someone at the company, that game sales are still important. Absolutely, Microsoft would love to sell 20 million copies of a game, but sales numbers isn't their defining calculus anymore. You know what I mean? Whereas for Sony and Nintendo, it absolutely still is. It's of high importance that these games sell a ton of units, and in order to do that, you have to have some space. Doesn't mean that you have to put these games 5-6 months apart, not necessarily, but you do need to have a little bit of a gap there because, you're getting people to buy games. Games right now from Sony, they're $70, right? So $70 to a regular casual gamer is a lot of money. Microsoft can afford to put these games a little closer because for them, like I said, sure, a ton of sales is great, but they're actually more concerned with engagement and total Game Pass subscribers. And if you're not having to quote pay, right, to buy Redfall and Starfield, you are technically paying something because you're paying for the subscription, but you don't have to do a lot extra money to get Redfall and Starfield. Let's say that they are how I think they are. Let's say Redfall is May and Starfield is June, like how I think it's going to be. 2 first-party games a month apart. That could be worrying if you're trying to sell a ton of these games. But if you're like, hey, sales is just gravy on top of the subscription, it's a lot lower barrier of entry to play Redfall for a month and then not have to buy Starfield and go straight into Starfield the next month. So yeah, Vision, it's a good observation, and yes, it is absolutely true. Absolutely true, for sure. Benji with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Benji, the PS5 sales have been down in Europe in 2022. Yeah, I have a thought about this, but it was surprising. I was surprised how low it was. If you guys missed this, PlayStation declined significantly in Europe, which I was shocked by. Let me get you the number. So that way you guys have some context around this, because it is pretty shocking. and I have a thought about exactly why this happened. Sorry. Got to find the number. Give me just a sec. Huh. I want to say it was 35%. But I'm having issues finding it. I could be wrong, but I thought it was 35. It was, yeah. PS5 was down 35% in mainland Europe. That's a shocking statistic. Let me finish your question, and then I'll say why I think that happened. That's surprising. Weren't shortages less severe? Could this be related to the price increase? The PS5 did better in Japan and the US, right? So no, it doesn't have to do with the price increase. Because from what I understand, I don't live in Europe, but from what I understand, Europe is still actually experiencing severe shortages compared to the West. What seems very obvious to me, Benji, is that Sony went all in on North America and Japan with their shipments this year, and particularly in North America. And I think there's a very, very, very powerful reason around why they did that. Now, we can debate if it was a good idea to, have that. I mean, 35% down year over year for a console this new should not be happening. So that's pretty alarming. However, I don't think that would be the case if inventory was, readily available. I think what happened, Microsoft outsold Sony in North America for 3 quarters in a row. So for almost an entire year, right? It was 9 months. Xbox was cumulatively each quarter outselling PlayStation for almost a year. I think what happened is that worried Sony a bit that they could potentially lose this gen in North America if they let Xbox start to build up a lead here. And I think it was a decision Sony had to make. They only have so many consoles they can make per year. And I think their decision was we have to combat Xbox in North America because Sony already has a huge advantage in mainland Europe. Now, again, we can debate if this was the right choice or not, but I'm just explaining what I think was Sony's thinking. I think they were like, Xbox is seriously gaining ground in North America on us. They had a very dominant last gen here in the US. Now, Xbox was closer than some people realize in North America with PlayStation 4, but it was still a sizable gap between the two. And as we all know, the 360, blew the PlayStation 3 away in North America. So I think Sony saw that, Xbox 9 months outselling them consecutively, and they got a little worried that, hey, if we let this spiral out of control and Xbox starts to build like a serious install base in North America, we could lose the generation here to them. And I think that's what happened. I think they made the decision, we got to focus on the US because Xbox is actually legitimate competition here. So I think that's what happened, Benji. Whether that was the right choice or not, who knows? But that is my thoughts on it. But it was shocking, yeah. 35% down year over year is a shocking number. In mainland Europe, guys. It's not globally, in Europe. Randy Norman, I still think Starfield will come out first half of this year. I think it will be a June release, same here. With that, I think at E3 they will focus on Starfield DLC, Forza Motorsport Live Service, Hellblade 2 Avowed, Hi-Fi, and Belfry. Okay. I think it'll be too early to talk about Starfield DLC, I think. They might announce like a season pass or something, but I don't think they'll actually show you Starfield DLC yet. I do agree Starfield's late June, in my opinion. Late June. I think it's going to be the last week of June, to be honest. And they could show some Forza stuff in terms of live service aspects if it does come out in like March or whatever, because they'll want an update on that. Hellblade 2 definitely makes sense if it's coming out this year, so I agree with that. Avowed to me is a possibility. It'll be Avowed or Fable. I think we might finally see Fable here because Matt Booty's been wanting to show it for a while. And I think Microsoft knows people are concerned about that game. So they could even do both. Maybe you see Avowed and Fable, but I definitely think one of them. At least one of Avowed or Fable will be there, yes. And maybe even both. You never know. Hi-Fi is a maybe. If you guys missed it, this is the game that is rumored to be Tango's new game. Could make sense to be here. If they announce it really at this developer direct right now, and let's say it's coming out in the second half of this year, like let's say it's, who knows, in the second half of the year, yeah, it could be there. And Belfry makes sense too. Yes. which if you guys have missed it, that is a game that is being developed exclusively for Xbox from the team that made the Banner Saga. It hasn't been officially announced, but we know about it. Randy Norman, I think we will see gameplay for either Perfect Dark or Fable at this coming E3. I'm hoping for Perfect Dark. I agree. Perfect Dark to me might be... I'm feeling pretty good about you guys seeing Fable at E3. Matt Booty wants to show it. Like he's outright said recently. He wants to show the game. Just Playground won't let him do it. And I think with all these reports that keep going out there about how the game's in trouble and all this stuff, I think they'll want to show it. I think they'll want to show Fable to... give confidence to the Xbox fans about that game. Dark Detective, Benji, what are your expectations? What's up, Dark? For the new releases this coming half year, lots of games planned. Who are the winners and losers? Who will surprise? Oh, this is a fun question from Dark. Okay, so the first half of the year. Let's look. We'll just do a brief overview, a brief preview, if you will. This is fun. I should have done a dedicated video to this. See, this year, guys, my goal is to make a lot more just like standalone dedicated videos on my YouTube channel and help grow it. But let's see. Let's do a brief preview. Losers and winners. What a fun question. Okay. So we'll go month by month. Don't worry, they'll be quick. We won't be on this like forever. January. Fire Emblem Engage is going to be a big success. It's tracking way above Fire Emblem 3 Houses, and 3 Houses was already a huge success for that franchise. So Fire Emblem Engage in January, we're going to call that a definite winner. This pains me to say, guys, we're going to call Forspoken a loser. This hurts me to say, guys, and I hope I'm wrong, right? Whenever I do this winners and losers thing, you guys know me. I want every game to be successful, but I also need to be realistic with you about what I'm looking at and what I think is going to happen. I hope every single game in the next 6 months ends up being winners, but we all know that that's not going to be true. Forspoken to me looks like a potential loser in the making. It hurts me to say this, but the reaction to the demo was hugely negative for the most part. I'm not saying there's no one that liked it, but most reactions were hugely negative that I saw on Twitter. And I just don't think there's a ton of excitement for this game. So we're going to call Forspoken a loser. Dead Space Remake to me right now is right in the middle. This game could go either way. I will tell you that hype online, which isn't everything, but Twitter metrics, YouTube views, these things are not super impressive. I'm going to be real with you. So that would be a little bit of a warning feeling. At the same time, though, I have a feeling Dead Space Remake is going to review really high. So this game to me is a dead middle. Could go into the winners category, could go into the losers category. We're talking about sales, I think, mostly, guys, here. So I could go either way. All right, on to February. Hogwarts Legacy is a massive winner. It's not even going to be close, guys. Whether you guys are in favor of this game doing well, whether you guys are hoping that this game completely bombs, whether you're boycotting this game or not, there is zero question Hogwarts Legacy is going to be a ginormous winner financially. Quality, we'll have to see. Will it be a winner or a loser financially? It's going to be a home run financially. This game is tracking giga-enormous. When I say it's tracking giga-enormous, this is tracking like a 10 million unit seller plus lifetime. Could go into the crazy stratosphere, guys. But what I mean is, like, I'll be shocked if this game sells less than 10 million units. This could be a 20 million unit selling game, guys. The tracking is that absurd. So, minimum of 10 million lifetime, and it could be significantly above that, but we'll have to see. But Hogwarts Legacy is an absolute winner. Again, we're talking mostly sales here, guys. Wild Hearts, pains me to say, but I'm probably going to put that into the losers category. I'm not seeing a ton of hype for it online, and it has competition actually now from Monster Hunter Rise, which is probably going to do really well on Xbox and PlayStation. So if there was no Monster Hunter Rise, I think this had a potential to kind of break out early in the year, but now I think it's at risk. So I'm going to put this in a potential losers category. Atomic Heart, I think this is going to be a winner because I think that the budget's not super crazy. It's a pretty small team. And, yeah, it should do well. Horizon Call of the Mountain and all of PSVR 2, it pains me to say it, I'm going to put it probably in the losers category. Tracking for this is really bad. At launch, we'll see, guys. We'll see. I don't want to go too negative on PSVR 2 after last week, but I'm just not impressed by any single tracking metric for PSVR 2. Pains me to say it because I love VR, but it's not tracking good. I don't know about pre-orders, guys, but in terms of like social metrics, they're abysmal. Man, there's so many games. So I'm going to kind of speed run the last few. A few winners and losers that stick out. Because each month will take too long. I'll do a standalone video. How's that sound, guys? I'll record a standalone video. Resident Evil 4 Remake is going to be a huge winner. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is going to be a huge winner. Suicide Squad, I hate to say it, might be a big fail. Just because WB doesn't seem confident in that game at all. They still won't show the game virtually at all outside of cutscenes, and the game comes out in 4 months. We know essentially nothing about the game. That's a red flag. Again, hoping it does well, but it's a red flag. Tears of the Kingdom will be a major, massive giga hit. And yeah, I got to wrap it up there. But there's a few. There's a few off the top of my head in the first 6 months. It looks like overall it's a great start to the year. But I got to hurry because I'm only going to go for like 10 or 15 more minutes. So I got to wrap this up. But it was a great question, Dark. I'll make a standalone video. That sounds like a fun video. We'll do a first half of the year preview. Highlander coming in with a super chat here towards the end. Like I said, I'm going to go about 10 minutes, guys, and then I got to go. It has been rumored that Avowed will have co-op, and thoughts on Playground devs leaving recently. Co-op for Avowed makes sense. Co-op is supremely popular. So if you can make it work, and it's not like a game-breaking thing, co-op's always a nice plus. I don't usually play co-op games, but they are incredibly popular. So having optional co-op to me probably makes sense as long as you can make it work in the game. Playground devs leaving recently. This shouldn't be near as controversial as some people kind of tried to make it out to be. Because the people that left were mostly from the Forza Horizon team, and most of them were people that have been making Forza Horizon games for a really long time. And I think a lot of those people probably just were burned out making racing games over and over again. You know what I mean? I love the Forza Horizon series, but they are very similar games. Now, as a consumer, I'm not burnt out on them at all because one comes out like, what, once every 3 years? I know it was 2 years in the past, but it looks like that's changing to a 3-year window. Like, that's enough for me. I don't get burnt out on them. I have a blast, but I'm also not making these games every single day. You know what I mean? If you're a dev that's been working on Forza Horizon for, let's say, the last 4 games, you know, I could definitely see that getting old. You know, it's a racing game, so you can't do anything with story, really. I know it has minimalist story elements, but you can't really do a ton narratively. You know, you can't do a ton in terms of changing crazy mechanics and stuff because it is a racing game, so you still got to keep it feeling like a racing game. So that's all I think happened. I think some of these devs at Playground have been making Forza Horizon for a long time, and they felt they wanted to just do something different. Because if you notice the new studio they established, it said they're making an open world game, which makes sense because they have a ton of experience with that, but it didn't say anything about racing. I don't expect this to be any sort of racing game. So I think that's what happened. I think these devs probably were like, we don't really want to work on Fable. We've been doing Forza Horizon for forever, and let's go make something new. While we have the opportunity, let's found a new studio and try our hand at our own thing. So I think it's cool. I have no issues with it. I still think Forza Horizon is going to be completely fine. It's not like half the studio left, just some people left. And yeah, that's it. I think they just wanted to try their hand at something totally different than Forza Horizon. Which makes sense. You see this sort of thing all the time. A lot of times people want to like blow up like and I'm not saying you are, Highlander, but like this happens all the time. Like so-and-so leaves studio. Oh my God, that must mean that studio's in like dire straits. It's like, that's like not true 90% of the time. Maybe occasionally that's true, but like most of the time it's that someone wants to do something different. Like they just want to make something different. You know, people have to remember that video games are definitely a business, but they're also a creative venture, right? A lot of people that make games are creatives. They're artists, or, you know, they want to stretch their creative legs. And if you're making the same thing for a long time, that can get boring, I'm sure. So that's probably all it was. Javier Macias Leon. Benji, it has been a while. How are you? I'm doing great, Javier. I hope you're doing good as well. Are you excited about the Last of Us show? 10 out of 10 hyped. My daughter's name is Ellie. Do you think we will see a rise in the sales of the games as we've seen with The Witcher and Cyberpunk? Yes and yes. I am 10 out of 10 hyped for the Last of Us series. I had huge faith in it the minute they announced the creative team on this. Like, literally, before they ever put out a trailer, anything. I heard HBO, I heard Craig Mazin, and I heard Neil directly involved. I was like, okay, this is going to be a hit. I was 0% shocked that the reviews are through the roof, guys. And one thing that needs to be very clear here, and this is going to make people that hate The Last of Us super angry, but it is what it is. You guys can't just say anymore that it's just like the gaming community overhyping The Last of Us. A ton of these reviews came from people that have never played the game. They have no history with the game. Where there's some that had history with the game, sure. But a lot of these reviews from major just entertainment companies that just, that's all they do is they cover movies and they cover TV. And they still loved it. I mean, guys, the reality is if you hate The Last of Us, that's okay. I'm not going to tell you guys that you have to love games. But for people that love The Last of Us, there's basically no other validation that you need that it wasn't just the gaming community overhyping The Last of Us. An entirely different community is now embracing it. Should be a mega hit. It should be a monstrous hit. I don't think the show will have near the baggage that the games have. I think a lot of casuals are going to absolutely love this show that don't know anything about The Last of Us, because that's a lot of people, guys. As big as The Last of Us is with the gaming community, there's a lot of just regular movie and HBO watchers that know nothing about it. And I think it's going to be a huge hit. Yeah, huge hit. Do I think we'll see a sales boost? Absolutely. Now, will it be as like heavy as what we saw with The Witcher and Cyberpunk? I don't know. But yeah, I expect The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 to both sell a lot. So I think the show's going to be a huge hit. Jacob Novick. Hi, Benji. Long time no see. A rumor about a Gears of War collection was shared, stating that it would have been revealed at their summer show, but that show was all games releasing in the next 12 months. Do you think we will see it at E3? I'd be down with it. I don't have any inside information on this one, Jacob, so I can't tell you if it's true or not. I think it makes sense. Gears of War is a popular franchise. You know, you can argue it's not as popular as it was, but if you did like a Mass Effect Legendary Edition version of Gears of War, right? Not the exact same thing, but how that took Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, packaged them together with improvements to the visuals. You do something very similar with Gears of War, I think it'd be popular, yeah. So it makes sense to me, Jacob. Now, whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. But I think people would dig it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Especially because they're getting a lot of people onto Xbox Series consoles that kind of skipped Xbox for a while. They've talked about that. They've talked about that a lot of people that are buying Series S in particular are like first-time Xbox owners. So it's a good way to get people into that franchise. And then one other thing from Jacob. Benji also just want to say Skull and Bones is a deal between Ubisoft and the Singapore government, so a release is required. Yep, it's a good thing to note. I had people asking me, why won't they just cancel Skull and Bones? It's because from what I understand, they took a huge tax credit or tax deal somehow with the Singapore government, the way it works, like by having the game developed there. And if they didn't release it, they're like legally obligated. And they could be in big legal trouble if they don't release this game. There's not a doubt in my mind this game would have been canceled years ago if it wasn't for that. Years. We would have seen this canceled probably 2 years ago. But they literally have to, or else they got to pay a ton of money from what I understand. Whoa, this is sad news. I'm so sorry to hear this. Jacob says I sound kind of drunk. I am not. I'm actually alcohol-free currently. I am, let's see. This won't be impressive to you guys, but I really like alcohol, guys. I'm going to be honest. I hit my 3 months of sobriety tomorrow. Tomorrow I will have been sober for 3 months. So that's really good for me. But I do like alcohol. So I got to be careful with it. I take long breaks from alcohol every once in a while, because if I'm not, it's one of those things I got to be a little careful with, if I'm being honest with you. But no, I am totally sober right now. But Jacob, I might have sounded weird when the stream started because I was like out of breath, dude. I just got done lifting. Timmer, sad news here, and I'm sorry to hear this. Benji, I'm unemployed now, so no super chats for a while, plus hope you're doing well. Well, Timmer, I know we all appreciate you here so much. You're always so supportive. I know everyone in the chat's familiar with you. The people that watch these videos, I'm sure love hearing your comments and stuff. Dude, we hope you get an awesome new job here soon. I'm so sorry to hear you're unemployed. And yeah, dude, don't give any super chats. You know, I tell you guys that all the time. Do not ever give money in super chat unless you feel like it is very much just expendable income. If it's one of those things, it's not going to hurt you at all. You're completely fine financially and you want to throw a few bucks for support, I very much appreciate it. But no one should ever be giving money if they're, you guys, like I said, I don't make a lot of money, so I know how it can be, how tight money can be. Never, ever, ever donate in super chat unless it's just something that's completely spare money that you feel comfortable with. So Timmer, no sweat, dude. You don't have to give me a super chat for a year or 2 years or ever again if you don't want to. It's completely fine, dude. And I hope you get a new job very, very soon. What's up, Brap? Brap is in the chat. What is up? A lot of people saying happy Friday. Hello, guys. Great to see you. Hello, hello. Goat status, Benji. We got 5 minutes left. Benji, does Ubisoft sell parts soon or do they go under? Which is more likely? I still think the most likely thing is that Ubisoft just remains independent exactly how they are. I think the most likely thing is Mirage does pretty well for them. Avatar does well and Star Wars does well. Like I said, I don't think Ubisoft is doomed. Are they in trouble? Yes. I think the most likely scenario, and this pains me to say, a lot of people get fired soon. I think they're going to start laying off a lot of people. They have an enormous workforce. And I'm not rooting for this, but I just think business sense wise, that's going to have to be what they do. So I think they're going to lay off a lot of people. I think they're going to focus on making those next 3 games that are like AAA games that are announced big hits: Avatar, Star Wars, and Mirage. And at the end of the day, I think they recover. I don't know that, like, you know, they come out of this perfectly fine. Like I said, I'm expecting a lot of layoffs, to be honest with you. It's hard to imagine a publisher canceling 7 games and not having layoffs. So I still think they're going to take some hits, but I still think the most likely scenario is they come out on the other side of this. But we'll have to see. I could be totally wrong. I would say the second most likely thing is they get completely acquired by Tencent once that is over. Once that deal they made, once that contract's over, the second most likely scenario is if it's not Ubisoft keeps control and recovers, it's Tencent buys them. Space Dovakin, hey Benjamin, hope you're doing okay and doing great right now, actually. I was wondering about your educated guess, the number of consoles sold from Xbox. This would be a great question for welfare. I want to say a good estimate's over 25 million now. No. Over 20 million. Over 20 million is right. I don't think they're over 25. I could be wrong. Welfare would be a good person to ask about this, but I think over 20 million. I think that would probably be a good estimate, somewhere north of 20 mil. Because combined install base between PS5 and Series should be over 50 million now. PS5's over 30 and Xbox should be over 20. I don't think they're over 25 though, so over 20 million I'll say. Jacob, yeah, Benjamin is my true name. I thought your name was just Benji. Benjamin is nice. Benjamin is my full name, but Benji is like what I go by a lot. It just depends. Sometimes I've been known as Benji. Sometimes I've been known as just Ben. Just depends. I like Benji, though. I'm partial to it. SoundsPB7 is asking about Undisputed Esports Boxing Club. It's early access on Steam later this month. Do you believe we'll get the full launch on PC and consoles by the end of 2023? Also, what do you think of it? No idea in terms of their development pipeline on that. Sounds, I haven't followed it super closely. What do I think of it? I think it could be successful if it's good, because there's been no boxing game in forever, like a legit boxing game. You know what I mean? Not like an arcadey, or people loved Fight Night, and that's just not happening anymore because they're on UFC Undisputed. So if it's good, I could see this game being successful because there's not many options out there for boxing games. Alex Saber's asking how I feel about Redfall. I'm feeling pretty confident in it, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a huge seller, but I think it'll do well on Game Pass. That's what I'll say. What's up, JCat? JCat in the chat. Great to see you, and thanks for helping mod the channel like always. I'm going to take one more question, and I got to go because I got to go to work. I'm going to pick a random one from someone that came late. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom. I apologize. Oh, Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat with a goat. Thank you so much, Matt Duffy. Great to see you, man. Thanks for the super chat and always being so kind and everything. And always the positivity, brother. I appreciate it. All right, one random question. People like the idea of a standalone video. I'm seeing Sloubot. Yes, a standalone video. Yeah, I need to do that. I don't do enough like actual videos. I only stream. And I told you guys this before. It's because I like streaming. Like, streaming to me is just so natural. I like interacting with you guys. And like early on, I started doing some pre-made videos, and I just wasn't having that much fun with it, to be honest with you, because I'm not great at it. I'm not great at editing. I mean, look at my thumbnails. They're super basic. And just getting on here and chatting with you guys to me is super natural. So I've always preferred the live streams, but the reality is that the live streams don't grow YouTube channels the same way pre-made like 10-minute videos do. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't want to just click on a live stream and watch a dude talk for an hour and a half. I mean, enough of you guys do. I appreciate it. We had, over 80 people, 90 people in here today at once. To me, that's great. But I'm saying it's not like a great way to like grow the channel. The way to grow it is these like 10-minute YouTube videos that someone can click and engage on super easily. So my goal is to get back to doing more of that this year. So I'm glad to see some people are excited for the standalone video. We'll do it. We'll do a first half of the year preview, and then I'll do a second half of the year when that comes up. But one question, and I got to go. Daniel McCracken's asking why people are considering boycotting Hogwarts. It's because of J.K. Rowling. My opinion on the whole boycott is that I completely understand people wanting to boycott it on an individual basis, depending on how you feel about the things J.K. Rowling says. I think that's completely fine. I completely understand wanting to boycott it, like on a personal level. At the same time, I also don't judge people that are going to play this game. My personal feelings is that judging someone, just a regular Joe that wants to play a game about Harry Potter and say they're like a terrible person, I think that's kind of crazy talk, to be honest with you. So personally, like I said, that's my stance. If someone wants to boycott this game, I think it's completely justifiable and completely understandable. At the same time, I'm going to play this game. And I also think that people that play Hogwarts Legacy aren't bad people. I feel like going that aggressive over something like that is just a quick way to have people not listen. If your goal is to communicate that what you feel like J.K. Rowling is saying is wrong, and that you feel like that people shouldn't be supporting the sort of things that J.K. Rowling says, I think one of the easiest way to make sure people don't listen to your opinion on that is to tell them they're bad people if they play Harry Potter. Just being real, there's tons of studies about it. And I'm seeing a lot of this start to pop up online, like people being like, you're bad. You're a bad person if you play Hogwarts Legacy. And there is tons of research that says painting people like that is the quickest way to get them to not listen to your opinion. So my advice would be that if someone does feel like what J.K. Rowling is saying is wrong, saying, I'm personally boycotting this game. These are the reasons why I'm personally going to not play this game. And I think that you shouldn't, necessarily agree with the things J.K. Rowling says. But doing the stuff like, hey, random Daniel McCracken, you're a bad person if you play Harry Potter. That's a quick way to shut somebody down. I'm just being honest with you. Okay. I think we're going to end it there. Sorry, a bit of a somber note to end it, but that's just my opinion on it. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for a great chat. I apologize. I missed so many questions today. Today's chat ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. We had like a billion questions in here that I didn't get to. I apologize. Like I said, I didn't expect that. I super am sorry. I'm not going to be doing a live stream more than likely next week because, like I said, my work schedule. I will try to put out, since I can't do that, guys, I can make videos late at night. I will do my best. I'll try and get some pre-made content out for you next week, and we'll experiment with that and see if people click the videos and like them. So we'll do that. That'll be my goal. I apologize about no live stream. We'll do one the week after, but my work schedule does not permit it next week. But I will give you guys a couple pre-made videos, okay? So we'll do one of them will be the first half year preview, and maybe I can come up with something else as well. All right, guys, thanks so much. Thank you for a great turnout today, much better than I expected. Hit the like button if you like doing these videos. Subscribe to my channel if you guys like these streams and you want to see more of them. And as always, you guys are the best. I love you guys. Thank you for everyone for the super chats and all that goodness. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you guys either I can't say next week here on YouTube. I always do, but I won't be here next week, but I will be in a pre-made video, so I'll kind of see you in a weird way, or I'll see you on Twitter. Of course, I'm always on Twitter. So have a good one, guys. Have a great one. Stay safe, play some games. I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everybody. Bye. 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 Bye.